Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Amanda Ray, and whenever I was 17, almost 18 years old, I left the cult that I was born in. If you are interested in hearing more about that, I will leave the links to those videos in my description box down below. But today we have Sam and Melissa again, and if you guys remember or you watched our last video, together Sam is from the FLDS, and Melissa grew up LDS, and they got married. So we're going to be talking about your guys' relationship. Because I know like our last video we kind of compared cults.
Yeah.
And now we'll just be talking about your guys' life.
All about us, okay.
Yeah. So first questions for Sam. How long after you left Sam did you meet Melissa?
Oh,
okay.
This is a fun story.
This is a fun one. So after leaving, it would have been probably about 5 months that I met her for the first time.
Oh, wow.
For the first time. So our story, you and me.
Yeah, go ahead. She does a great job of telling this story.
I want to hear this.
So it was a quick meet, and then we had a break there. So
yeah. So my 18th birthday party. We're the same age. So my 18th birthday party. It was right after he had left. Like 5 months. And then a mutual friend brought him to my birthday party, and my like lunch buddy in high school had just like moved away. And so I was like, oh, I don't have a lunch buddy. And he's like, oh, I'll be your lunch buddy. And so we went on a couple lunch dates, and then we never spoke again.
What? Wait, were you in the same school then?
No, it's just we just had mutual friends. Like the friends that he had when he first left, I was friends with already.
Okay.
They went to a different high school, but like I knew them. So they came to my birthday party and brought Sam along.
Okay.
And I never went to high school, so
That's what I was going to ask. What was your education level when you left?
when I left,
Like third grade.
like not much.
Okay.
Not much. We did have homeschooling out there, so it was a little bit, but nothing super structured, or I don't even know what grade I would consider it.
They stopped, like the boys, he stopped and started working full-time construction when he was about 12.
Oh wow.
So
could you
super
read
young.
and write though?
You know what? Reading and writing was my strongest subject actually, because I enjoyed reading.
Right.
So I wasn't good at it or fast at it, but I could read. Yes.
Okay, because I've met
Most of the
some
words,
boys.
not
that,
all the words.
Yeah, I met some boys that were like at a first grade reading level, like they couldn't read like at all or write.
Yeah,
So
I remember. Just speaking of that, when I first moved out, I read deceased on something, and I was like, "What is this?" I didn't know what deceased meant. So
Really?
just as an example of a word I didn't know.
Wow. So most of the stuff you learned was kind of like self-taught or at home.
A lot of it was just reading a book or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you know that where he had come from when you met him?
So yes, so when he came to my birthday party, I knew, and then when we had gone to lunch, he was very open about it. So I knew that he was from out there. He had a very, very, very strong accent.
That's what I was gonna ask. Quaker accent.
Oh yeah,
Very
like I
strong.
said, and I remember. I mean, the funny things about that is at that time, like our lives definitely didn't mesh, and I just remember like when we'd go out to lunch, I wanted to be like a lunch buddy, like a friend, and he kept paying for me, and it made me feel like almost uncomfortable because I was like,
nice.
oh my gosh, what if he's like thinking these are dates and I'm like not interested in dating like that? Like I was like, I don't think so. So we went on 2 dates and we didn't speak again.
Okay.
Until 5 years, for another 5
5
years. I don't know if you want me to jump that far ahead, but it was 5 years that we did not speak after we'd met the
We
first
kind
time.
of went separate ways at that point.
Yeah.
I left on an LDS mission.
Okay.
And
Were you LDS at the time?
hold on a minute. I was in the process of being baptized. I actually wasn't baptized yet.
And I was LDS.
And she was.
Yeah.
Did you think that it was a date when you
Yeah,
were hanging out?
that's a good question.
That's a good question. I mean, going way back, it's hard to...
Because I know that when I was young from Cole, I was like, every interaction with a boy was like, does he like me?
I would say that I thought it was more of a date than she did, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, coming from where I came from, not even being allowed to interact with the opposite sex or even have any type of relationship, because everything was arranged, all the marriages and everything. So being with her automatically felt like more of a date than she would have thought, because she was used to having dates and going out with boys and all that.
And I also had guy friends that were just friends. So like the lunch buddy that I had before was legitimately just a guy who was a friend. Like we never dated or anything. And so I was used to having just friendship relationships with guys. And I had a missionary at that time that was out that I was like waiting for him to come home.
Oh yeah, right.
And so so at the same time it was like I wasn't interested in dating at all, and it felt like a date.
Yeah.
The 2 dates we went on, and so.
So after that, we just went our separate ways. You moved up to northern Utah. This was in St. George, Utah, that we met. And then I left on an LDS mission, and it's just kind of went apart at that point.
Interesting. Then how did you guys end up reconnecting? Five years later?
Yeah, so it was 5 years later. At that point, I was living in northern Utah. I was a manager for In-N-Out Burger.
Oh, wow.
And so I was up there, and I really, I remember waking up one day and just starting to cry because I knew that I never wanted to go back to St. George. And I woke up feeling like I needed to move back. And I was so upset by it, but I felt it in my heart. I was like, I need to move back. And it was so hard, but I just knew I needed to. And I moved down on a Thursday. And that first Sunday, I tried to look up where my singles ward is. So if anybody doesn't know, for young single people, there's special LDS wards that you go to. So you don't go with families or anything. You go with people your age. And so I went and tried to look it up, and they have it on the app, so it's supposed to be really easy. You put in your address. So I put in my address, and it told me this church building, this time, and I walked in, and it was not my ward. And I was sitting in the back, frustrated, because I was like, oh my gosh, I looked up when I'm supposed to be here, and it's not the right thing. So I'm sitting in the back, mad, and he walks in, and he looked so familiar, and I was normally really bad with names, but I was like, I think I remember his name. And so I literally walked up to him super awkwardly and tapped him on the shoulder. I was like, is your name Sam? But he had become a man.
Mm-hmm. 5 years later.
This is 5 years later. We're talking 18-year-old boy, and he had become a man. And so I was like, is your name Sam? And he's like, yeah. So he sat next to me in church, and then we went to our separate meetings. And right as I was about to leave, he ran up to me and was like, hey, we should go to lunch for old time's sake. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And so, yeah. And then
I felt horrible because
he didn't remember my name.
I was like, oh, we went to a lunch date. What was your name? I didn't remember her name, so I felt bad.
And at that time, he was what they call elders quorum president, so he's in charge of all the men in the ward.
Oh,
and so he was a little busy bee, interacting with all these people. And here I am, accidentally in the wrong ward that I'm not supposed to be in. My very first Sunday back in St. George, and so I was just like, it's okay, go do your thing.
Did it hurt your feelings if you didn't remember your name?
It didn't hurt my feelings. I'm actually kind of surprised that I even got up to go tap on his shoulder. Now even just saying it, I'm like, that sounds so awkward. What made me just feel like getting up and doing that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But he asked me, so he got my number, and he asked me on a date for that next week, and so we set up a date for that next Friday, and then I called and I canceled on him because I had to reel him in. No, I'm just kidding.
That's when she got me.
That's what I got.
When she canceled, I was like, oh, you're going to play this game? Okay. Okay.
No, I had to cancel the first date, but I was like, it's a rain check, I promise. And I called him back a couple days later, and we went on our first date the next week, so 2 weeks after we had re-met.
Okay.
And we went on our very first date, and the next day I just was like, oh, this is it. I'm not going to date anybody else. I actually had a guy, so I'd gone on another date because you're coming back to your hometown, so all the people that wanted to date you in high school, all of a sudden are like, she's back. So I had a couple dates that week, and I'd gone on a date with a guy on Wednesday, and then I went on my first date with Sam on Friday. Saturday, the guy from Wednesday called, he's like, can I take you out again tonight? And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I have a boyfriend. And I just called him my boyfriend after our very first date, which I never did. I
guess I left a good impression on him.
Yeah, you did.
When
you know. So the very next day, I was like, oh, sorry, I have a boyfriend. And then I remember calling my mom being like, well, I just turned down these other guys. I hope Sam calls me for a second date.
Oh, you didn't even know if he was going to call you?
No, I had no idea, but I just felt like it was it. And it was. And we have been together ever since that first date.
Who asked you first? So he asked you.
Yeah, he asked me.
Where did he take you?
Oh my gosh, he went all out, okay? So
I drained my savings account.
Yeah, he's just in college.
I was trying to
poor
impress
college
her.
Kid. But yeah, so he took me to the nicest restaurant in St. George. It's called Anasazi Steakhouse, and you cook your steaks on a hot lava rock. If you ever go to St. George, it's a really awesome place. We still love going there now. But so we went to this super fancy place for a restaurant, and then we went and played bowling. And then after that, he's like, well, do you want to go get frozen yogurt? So then we went to frozen yogurt. And then we went to go watch a movie. And it was one of those where it's we were just trying to drag on the night as long as possible because we didn't really...
Yeah.
I didn't want to go home.
I made it seem like I had it all planned out, but I just had dinner planned out. But then we had such a good time that I said, oh, now let's do this. And I was just making up stuff as the night went on. So because it was going so well.
But the funniest part about our meeting again is he no longer had an accent. And when he brought me back to his house to watch a movie, we walked in and I looked on the wall and I recognized the family. Okay, because it was the family of the friend who brought him to my 18th birthday party. And I was like, I know this family. And in my head, I'm like, this isn't like,
This isn't
his biological family. Like, there's no way. Like, I know this family, and I did not know him from that. And so it was so weird because in my head, I was like, I swear he's from out there, but because they are and still are his family now, but he was calling them his family, and I was like, I swear he said he was from the FLDS, but he doesn't have an accent anymore. And there's pictures of this family, but I swear he doesn't, like, he didn't grow up with this family. And so after our first date, I think it was only like our very next date, like a couple days later, I had to say it because I had a dream. Even like after our first date, I literally had a dream that like gave me flashbacks of our lunch dates, and I was like, I know he's from out there. Like, I know that he's from the polygamous group, and now it doesn't seem like there's like any hint of that at all.
Yeah.
And so
It's crazy how much changed over those 5 years.
Yeah, a ton of changed.
The reason I lost my accent was because of the 2 years I spent in Chile.
Yeah.
And speaking Spanish.
I was speaking Spanish all the time, so I just came back and in some ways had to relearn some English words. So I just kind of came back, and it was just, everything was changing, yeah.
And in those 5 years, he went from, that family that was originally helping him out had become his family.
Right.
Over those 5 years' times, from just helping him to now, like, he was living with them, they're his family, he's calling them mom and dad, like, and so much had changed in those 5 years. And before, like you said, like, he didn't have any education, he wasn't interested in education, like when we had gone on our lunch dates, and I was going to college, like, planning on going to college and these type of things. And now I come back and he's going to college, he has no accent, and he has his new family, and all these, and it was just a completely different experience, except for we still had an awesome, amazing time.
Yeah.
I wasn't scared about having dating at that point.
That's what I was going to ask is, were you ever afraid of his past? Because he did come from polygamy. Did you ever get scared that he was still believing in that stuff?
So no. Really? And I get asked that question all the time. And it's funny because I was never worried. And I don't know if it was just because I had grown up, there were kids in my high school that had been lost boys that were kicked out and stuff. And I even had a kid in my neighborhood I was friends with that a family had taken in. And so I think I was just around people from out there so much that I understood why they left.
Yeah.
And
she was around other people. She was familiar with the place. But I would say something you've mentioned before, and even more importantly, is I was an open book. I wasn't secretive about anything. I wasn't trying to hold back any information. So I was very open about my past, which I feel like that gave her comfort that I wasn't trying to hide anything.
Absolutely. And seriously, it was our first date, those were in my mind of isn't this the same guy? But by the next date, we talked about, and everything was on the table. So it was super fast. He wasn't hiding anything from me. I was just wondering, wait a minute.
It's just not something you normally talk about on a first date. Just so you know, I have 4 moms, 35 siblings,
But yeah, so. I was never worried, and he was always so open, and we talked about things like that all the time. And I always told him, I was like, well, your family sounds really complicated, but mine's crazy. So I feel like it's okay. So
perfect match.
Yeah, we're good. I was used
every
to
family has
families.
something, right?
Yeah.
I asked that too because I have a half brother from the first wife that left, and he got married, and her family was kind of scared because he had come from a polygamous family, and there's all the stereotypes. So.
Yeah. Well, and even in the LDS religion, so to get married in the temple, we had to have interviews with our stake president, and the stake president even asked me, and they're like, is there anything that you're worried about from him being in this other religion? Is there anything that worries you, or?
I think the biggest thing people are worried about is fidelity because of I came from a place where a lot of the men had more than one woman, right?
Yeah. Or that somewhere in our marriage, all of a sudden he'd be like, well, I actually really do feel like I need more wives in order to live the celestial law or something.
Yeah.
And so I think people worry about that too. But even in that interview, I was like, nope, I'm not worried at all. It's all...
That's good. It's all good. You guys communicated, you understood.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's been our number one go-to. Best way to fix any problem is communication.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what we've been...
And understanding.
Exactly.
And being able to understand each other. I was going to ask about college and education. You said you guys are both going to college.
So not now. I graduated with a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
What field?
So it was in integrated studies, marketing, and Spanish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I had gone to 2 years of school and got my associate's degree. And then right before I was about to get into my bachelor's program, I had a 6-month gap, and I was working in and out, and they're like, do you want to try management? And I tried it, and I loved it.
Really?
And so I have my associate's degree, but then so right after we had met, I did 2 years college, and then the last 3 years before that were me being a manager for In-N-Out in northern Utah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
moved up
Is
there.
that Provo? Is that what you mean?
I was
I'm
all
thinking Provo
over.
when you
Yeah,
said
so I worked at 6 different stores up there. So Orem, American Fork, I worked in West Jordan, Midvale, and then I also worked and opened up the store up in Riverdale, up by Ogden, and lived up in Ogden. I moved from Ogden back to St. George. So I was up in Ogden and I worked there and in Centerville. So I was all over the place in northern Utah.
Okay. Do you feel like that feeling of moving to St. George was to meet Sam?
Oh, now absolutely. I feel like it was.
It was within a couple of weeks after she moved down that we met again.
No, it was like 4 days.
4 days. Okay, 4 days. Wow.
No, that first Sunday. I mean, it was 2 weeks after I moved down that we went on our first date. But I definitely think that's what it was because it was hard. Like I had lived there my whole life. I felt like I had dated like every guy in St. George or their cousin. Like I felt like if I moved to St. George, I'm going to die an old maid. I don't have a chance. It's the same pool,
It's a
the
small
same
town.
people. It's a small town, and so no, I was pulled and knew I needed to, but I cried about it. I didn't want to go back to St. George at all, and just felt like it was what I needed to do.
Wow.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah. So you guys went on the first date, and then he asked you on another date. When did you guys become official?
Actually, I think it was my dad who made us official.
It was actually a very funny story. In St. George, there's an art festival each year, and we went
Easter
weekend, and so we went together with her parents to the art festival, and because it's kind of a tradition they always go. So I went along, and we were out there, just having a good time looking at the art. And her dad, at one point, I don't know if I refer to you as Melissa or someone. I'm not sure exactly how it happened.
My parents were introducing you to. You see a lot of people that
Yes,
you know
that's
because
what
it's
it
a small
was,
community still. So my dad saw someone that he knew, and he's like, "Oh, so and so, hi, like this is my family, and
this is Sam. He's with Melissa.
Yeah, this is Sam.
He's her boyfriend. That's
Yeah, here's the thing.
That's what he said.
He's her boyfriend, and we had only been dating for like 2 weeks at that point.
Not long.
Yeah, not long at all.
It was for anyone that was around us, though. It was pretty obvious that
we were holding hands at the art festival.
There was no one else in the world. It was just us two. I mean, we were like, it happened pretty quick, but we just kind of knew. We had both been on so many dates before that, and nothing was working out, and it just worked out perfectly.
Yeah,
We just knew it was very easy.
Yeah. So when my dad kind of like said it out loud, and then we were just like,
okay,
and we just rolled with it. I mean, other than the fact that I told other people he was my boyfriend, but that was the first time that he knew that he was.
That I knew,
That he was aware.
That he was aware of that situation.
How old were you guys at the time?
23, right?
Yeah.
23.
Oh wow. That's like so fast, but I feel like when you know, you really do know, and it's different than anything else.
Well, it's so funny because I lived in northern Utah, right? Like I'm living in Provo Orem area where people get like engaged super fast.
Yeah.
And I had so many roommates. I lived in northern Utah for 3 years, and I took pride that I had lived up there for 3 years without getting engaged. Was like pat on my own back.
Did you feel like an old maid?
I definitely felt. Oh yeah, I definitely felt older, and
At 23.
At 23, I definitely felt older. But also not rushing into everything. Like I saw all these people, and I would make fun of them. I'm like, oh my gosh, all these people are just like, they're meeting, and then they're just getting engaged, and they're getting married to a man they just met, and like, I just couldn't even believe it. And then literally, I moved to St. George, and we went on our first date. 2 weeks later, we were official. It was 6 weeks after our first date that we got engaged.
No.
And we got married 3.5 months later.
Shut up. So all within in what?
6 months.
In 6 months.
Our first date was the first week of April, and we got married August 16th.
Wow.
It was very
June,
quick.
July, August. So yeah,
It was very quick,
4
yeah.
months. 4 months in 1 week from our first date to our wedding day.
But surprisingly, like I know a lot of people say that they regret getting married so fast or something along those lines. But for us, it just, I mean, there wasn't anything else. We didn't want it any other way. We just knew that's what we wanted, and we wanted to make it official. And there's no regrets. We're happy we did it. I mean, there was nothing to be worried about or concerned about, really. So.
And now we've been married for like over 7 years.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was karma. I was like, this is what I get for making fun of people. Don't ever make fun of people because you don't know their situation, and then it's just,
But it's because you hadn't met that person.
Exactly.
So you didn't understand.
Yeah.
It's easy to make fun of those that, if you haven't met the person, you're like, oh, why would you ever do that? And then next thing you know, it's you.
Exactly.
Yep.
How did you propose? Or how did that go?
Ooh. It was very, very fun, actually. Do you want to tell the story, or do you want me to tell the story?
Oh, I should tell this story because you're
Okay.
hilarious.
So I guess before
Set it up.
before the proposal, I wanted to visit with her dad to have the conversation that, hey, I love your daughter and I want to ask her to marry me. And anyway, so that was kind of, he will laugh about this experience. I don't know why I was so nervous. Like I was so nervous. So I was working in an office at the time, and I asked him on his way home from work if he would stop by and visit with me. And he said yes, of course. So he stopped by to visit with me, and I was just, I mean, I went on about like my feelings about Melissa, and that I wanted to talk to him about, you know, that I wanted to marry her. But I left out the fact that I never said I love her. Because I was so nervous, and so after I gave my spiel, he was like, "Well, you left out one important key part here," and I was like, "Oh no, what did I do?"
You didn't say you love your daughter.
And he's like, "Well, do you love her?" Oh, of course, I love her. So anyway, it was kind of funny looking back at it, but I don't know why I was just so nervous. I mean, I guess it's a big deal, obviously,
Yeah.
but. Anyway, so then that led up to the proposal, and I'll let you tell that story.
Yeah, so we had gone and looked at rings. So super funny. I would date guys for months and not let them call me their girlfriend. So like boyfriend, girlfriend was like a big deal to me. I think I'd only been official with like one person ever, like my missionary. I think that was it, maybe two ever. And so like we were already official, which was crazy for me. And then on our very first date, my mom always does the one of the high school's grad night trips where they bus down the kids to California, and you do like Disneyland and Six Flags and a yacht party and all this stuff. And so that was like tradition, and we had done it at that point for like 7 years. Okay, so it was every single May when the kids would graduate, we would help out, and I would always chaperone. And our very first date, I mentioned it to him, and I was like, "Well, you should just come with us." And I remember going home that night and being like, I have never invited a guy that I was dating to go on this trip. Like, it's not worth it being ruined with somebody that I may or may not like in a week.
Yeah.
Like, it was so odd that I invited him to it. But
Yeah.
we went and looked at rings the week before we left on the grad night trip. And obviously, like, sizing takes time and ordering takes time and all these things. And so the next week, you know, I had my friends that were like, he's going to propose to you on grad night. Like, he's going to propose to you when you're in Disneyland, because I love Disneyland. Like, I love all things Disney.
Aww.
And so I was like, everyone was like, he's going to propose. And I'm like, no, we just looked at rings last week. Like, there's no physical possible way for it to happen, because he couldn't have gotten the ring sized. There's no way he could have gotten it ordered. It was like 5 days ago. So I was like completely not even thinking about it. And I was like, there's just no way. So we're going on a ride, and all of a sudden he's like, we had some dinner reservations at the Blue Bayou at like a fancy restaurant in Disneyland. And I'm still not thinking anything of it. And I think actually one time when I hugged you, I actually kind of like felt his pockets a little bit just to make sure, and I didn't feel like
Pat him down.
Yeah, I kind of patted him down a little. I was like, oh, okay, no, now I don't have to worry. But he was like getting antsy, and he's like, we might be late for a reservation. I'm like, we might be like 5 minutes late. It's not a big deal. Like, it's okay. Just calm down. You know. And he's like, no. Like, maybe we should get out of the line. And I'm like, we've been waiting. Like, let's just go on the ride. And he was so antsy to get to the dinner. And then we finally sit down to eat. And he was like, something was just kind of off, and he dropped a little silver like twist tie. And he's like, oh, what's this on the ground? And he like picks it up, and he had like twisted it and it looked like a little ring, and then he was like, oh, look, it's like a little ring. And I was like, oh, cute. So he goes to put this like little twist tie on my finger, and he leans in and gives me a very long held out kiss. And when I pulled back from the kiss, he was like down on one knee with the ring and asked me to marry him, and everybody in the whole restaurant was cheering.
It was a good time, yeah.
It was super, super cute and
That's
super sweet.
cute.
I think when you gave me the first ring too, that's when you said like all your sweet stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I just really love you and da 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 da. And
Aww.
I
So
don't
you
even
knew when you were looking at rings that you were going to be getting one.
So I did, and technically it wasn't possible to get it so quickly, but I went back, you know, with a little bit of magic. I went back begging the people at the place. I'm like, hey, I have this big trip. I need this ring. I don't care what you got to do. I need this ring. So they pulled some strings and made it happen.
Wow.
So anyway, because I wanted it to be a big surprise, and I figured she wouldn't think I could get it fast enough.
I did not think there was any way.
So I went and begged them, and they got it to me quick enough. The only person that knew that I was going to propose on that day was her dad and my best man, who came with us
on the trip.
on the trip.
Yeah.
So those are the only two people that knew. Her mom was super surprised and kind of upset that I didn't tell her.
Oh, which is, yeah, because she likes to know everything.
Yeah. So everyone else was really surprised, but it was great.
And my parents happened to be like, they were having dinner like on the other side of the restaurant, and it was funny because my mom was like, you didn't tell me, I could have seen it happen, and her back was turned and she didn't know anything was happening until like everyone was cheering, and she like had no idea that it was over us. And she was like, what? It was happening, like that's why everyone cheered. It was super funny. But we were glad it was just the two of us. But it was kind of funny that she didn't know, and then she was kind of there, but she didn't. But she wasn't.
Right.
So it all went down in Disneyland.
Yeah.
So it was a magical moment.
Come true.
Yes, all of dreams.
And then 3 months later, you got married in the temple?
Yes.
Which temple?
St. George.
St. George, Utah Temple. Yep.
Isn't that one of the, is it an older one?
It is.
Yeah.
It's one of the oldest.
Yeah, it was actually, it's one of the oldest.
Northern Utah temples. Well, and
No, just in Salt Lake and then St. George.
right. Yes. As far as the yes.
Or was it St. George dedicated before the Salt Lake?
I think the St. George Temple was actually finished before the Salt Lake
Yeah, that's
Temple.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's the oldest temple that still belongs to the LDS Church.
Oh, wow.
Because there's still like the Kirtland
There was the
Temple is that
Kirtland,
one by a different
yeah.
church. And the Nauvoo Temple was destroyed and the churches built that one, like rebuilt it. But the St. George is like the oldest standing church that's ever
Yeah.
dedicated.
So my only experience I have with going to like weddings, LDS weddings, is I wasn't allowed to go in. So I don't know what happens behind the doors because I'm not LDS. But are you guys allowed to talk about that? Are you guys still pretty active in the church? You want to talk about that or?